when we're winning, when we're making progress, we feel amazing. When we're not, we don't feel so good. One of the things learning from Tony back in the day was, progress equals happiness.
We've got to embrace the idea that what I call strategic energy allocation, which is the concept that we have seasons. And what I believe is that we should never, as high performers, be in a situation where one thing is way up here and something else is in the toilet, ever.
Hey everyone, it's Tamara Thompson with Broadcast Your Authority, and I have an incredible guest lineup over here, my panelists. Thanks for joining me all today for Broadcast Your Authority. Good to see you all. And for our next interview, we've got a couple of great co-founders from Empire Partners. We have Ryan Lang and Brook Bishop. Thank you guys for traveling in today. I believe you guys are out in, I know you're in Colorado. Where are you from?
I'm 10 minutes away from where
10 minutes? I was like, I was thinking maybe that would be the
Practically
case.
neighbors.
Awesome. Practically neighbors. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us. We're excited.
Thanks for having us.
Well, first, how did you guys become co-founders together in a company? I just want to hear a bit about your backstory.
Oof. You want me to go up? You want to rock, paper, scissors for it?
Sure.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
I'll roll with it. So I had spent 15 years working with Tony Robbins, and when COVID hit, I decided to exit. And I took a contract. I was helping a company that was more in the marketing space for online webinars and funnels. And in connecting with some of the other people that were doing some other contract work with that company, Ryan and I ended up on a Zoom, and I'm like, hey, where do you live? And he's like, hey, where do you live? And we're like, wow, we live 10 minutes from each other.
Wow.
And that was kind of the beginning of it. And we just realized we had so many similarities just in philosophy and how we want to work with clients and just really heart-centered entrepreneurs. And we also started kind of unpacking what our business structure was. And we're like, wow, we are like completely aligned on every level. And yeah, that was really the beginning of how that kicked off.
I love that. So you guys have like certain strengths that bring each other together on that side of it as well, I'm sure.
Yeah. So, but we both aligned on the sales side. He's way more on the marketing end. That stuff goes over my head, but yeah.
I love that. I mean, it's like serendipitous basically on that side. Being on Zoom and you're like, wait, you live 10 minutes away?
Yes. It was a pretty funny moment. Wait, where are you? Oh, Northern Colorado. Wait a minute. Where in Northern Colorado? Yeah, it was pretty wild.
I love that.
Awesome.
Well, tell us a little bit more about what Empire Partners does and creates as an experience for your demographic.
Yeah, so we really have two sides of our business. We started the company as a boutique consulting firm, and we still do that today. So we work, with 7, 8, even 9-figure businesses in a boutique consulting fashion, optimizing sales, marketing, operations, that kind of stuff. But we also have another side of our business, which is really our passion project, and that's our mastermind, where we're really working with our primary clientele are coaches, experts, thought leaders, consultants. You're delivering information in some way, shape, or form. But we've worked with service businesses of all different kinds. And essentially the way that we work with people and what the mastermind is all centered around is the concept of kind of 4 levels of business, understanding where you are and creating a strong foundation that you can scale from and very strategically moving from one level to the next.
Where are you seeing a lot of the service providers getting stuck in their businesses?
I think there are a couple of different, I would say there are a couple of different stuck points. The obvious one is right at the very beginning. As we know, the statistics on building a business and forget being successful, even surviving, are not great. So at the beginning is an obvious place in terms of getting stuck, just because most people don't know what they don't know. And a big part of not knowing what you don't know is recognizing that business is tough. It's Brooke and I like to say it's a sport for gladiators, and a lot of people really don't realize that when they start. So I would say there. And the second piece is I think there's a definite stuck point when you have a business that's been successful enough, but essentially you've just bought yourself an expensive job. You bought yourself an expensive job. Maybe you have a couple of team members, but you haven't been able to fully, optimize your time,
Or delegate.
Correct. I mean, I hate to use a cliche phrase, but it's the old adage of, I'm too in the business to be working on the business. It's a real thing. And honestly,
true, though.
A lot of people get stuck there.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what the 4 stages are?
Brooke?
Yeah. So 4 stages. So the foundational level we call startup. As soon as you level up from there, we go to stability. Then you have success, and at the top we labeled it mastery. So got startup, stability, success, and mastery. And within each of those phases, it's required to have a change in strategy, because whatever moves you to the next level is also going to be the thing that prevents from getting to the further level. And then you also need a change or shift in psychology or mindset or identity to level up within each one.
Spending 15 years with Tony Robbins, that's interesting.
I survived.
It's a lot of experience.
Yeah.
How do you integrate what you learned during that experience in what you guys are doing now?
So I had hair at the beginning of that experience. No, quite a bit, honestly. Being behind the scenes, working with Tony, for anyone who knows Tony Robbins, he is a complete freakazoid of a human being. His level of intensity, his level of passion, the amount of heart that he brings to the table. The thing that honestly I loved the most, aside from getting to travel the world and work with incredible human beings, I got to see how he deconstructed and made decisions and how he ran business. I mean, he's got over 180 companies that he now owns. Wow. He's done over, I think, 15 billion a year between them. And just seeing how he made decisions, how he managed teams, how he created culture. When people had limiting beliefs, I know in a previous episode today, we're talking about limiting beliefs, seeing how he would tackle that, especially in entrepreneurs, the leaders, and how to navigate through and break through that and put it into systems and apply it. I mean, there's 15 years, there's a lot to unpack within the experience of doing that.
And there's a big difference between doing that when you talk about leadership from a startup standpoint versus your stability, versus your success, versus your mastery, which could be 5, 50, 100. How do you integrate those different leadership principles when you're going from startup to stability to success and mastery?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a loaded question, right? Because at each stage is going to be a totally different animal. The other interesting piece too is we all have different definitions of what our version of startup is or what our version of stability is. What I can say is the bigger you get, there's more links in the chain of where things can go wrong. So the more complexity that gets added in creates more fail points. Usually what we end up seeing is when people get out of sequence that's where problems happen. So you might be in startup and you're making mastery level decisions. We've talked about this many times of, people immediately running to paid ads and they melt all the money they have and poof, they're back at a job. Mm-hmm. So it really depends on each level, but yeah, we like to look at the vision that somebody has and where they want to take their business and where they're currently standing and helping them make their own definition and their own pathway to navigate through there.
Fantastic.
I would just add to that really quickly. It's a really good question. And I think that one of the things that we work with people on is the fact that leadership, I think a lot of people have the misconception that leadership begins when you hire somebody and it doesn't. When you're a business of one, you got a job to lead yourself. And there's a fiduciary responsibility that you have to yourself in that moment. Speaking of optimizing time and understanding what we're doing, I think you have to learn how to lead yourself before you can lead others. And so I agree with Brooke. It's different at every stage, but I think it really begins by claiming the role and the identity of leader early, as opposed to attempting to cultivate that identity later on.
Great.
So what do you think of the biggest sticking points or challenges that people have as they're moving through these stages with you?
Brooke kind of alluded to it a moment ago, but I think the first thing, one of the biggest sticking points is just a recognition of I'm here. And right now I need to optimize this zone before I'm going to go try to play in another. So for example, Brooke referenced paid ads, but there are a million different things that we could talk about from a tactical standpoint that would be examples of this. But people walk in the door and we all want to hit, who doesn't want to hit the accelerator button, the old Staples easy button on 0 to 1,000,000 and on. The problem is so often we don't understand that we latch on to tactics that we don't have the foundation for. And in the absence of that foundation, we literally end up in a position where we go and try to employ a tactic, and let's just say it might even work. This is actually worst case scenario. It works for a little while, and we see it all the time when the foundation is not there. Literally, the entire business has a tendency of crumbling when that tactic that we're employing that's way too far down the road breaks or doesn't work, or we don't have the foundation for it. And quite often it's honestly the end of a business, forget, a setback. So I think the first thing is just a recognition that I'm here and it's okay for me to be here. And I need to build a really clean and clear foundation before I'm going to run off and try to do all these really advanced level tactics. If that makes sense.
100%.
When you're looking at the 4 stages for business growth, like obviously there's going to be different challenges in each stage. Like you'll see people do paid ads and they don't even have clear offers. And they're like, why didn't my ads work?
Why didn't it work?
This is why your ads aren't working, by the way. And then you can also have high revenue, but you don't have any profit. So I assume that you guys go in and you really are looking at every granular detail of what's really going on in their business and how to make it better and optimize it better. So what are some examples, because you have the marketing background, what are some examples and things you're seeing wrong with the people at different stages that they're struggling with for marketing? I can't even talk specifically.
Yeah. So to start with that one, if we can just kind of stick with this theme and this idea of paid ads, for example, because I think a lot of people, regardless of what niche you're in, you can identify with this. A lot of people come in and we try to hit the fast forward button on paid ads again, because it's the one thing that if we get it right, we can turn the dial up and we can turn the dial down, and we love paid ads. The problem is that as an example, to use the example that you just used, I haven't even dialed in my messaging yet. I'm maybe not even 100% clear on my ideal client avatar. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to deliver whatever it is that I'm promising, but I'm going to go dump a whole bunch of money into paid ads. We see it all the time. And I think the other thing is to run with this example, that in and of itself can kill your business. It nearly did mine. Not knowing any better, I spent, upwards of $150,000 to $200,000 on marketing that had, that didn't have the proper foundation, and nearly went bankrupt over it. So, that's kind of one problem that it can pose. But the other problem is this. Paid ads is another good example of something that is a tactic. People believe that they go off and they find a tactic, and all of a sudden the business can just be built around a tactic. We create a lot of problems when we build businesses around tactics, because it's not a matter of if it's going to break, it's a matter of when it's going to break. And especially when we talk about something like paid ads, the minute that Mark Zuckerberg decides to, change the algorithm in your Facebook ads and you're melting, because you're spending $20,000 a month on ads and they're not functioning anymore, we got a major problem. So, I would just say that that's an example of an area, number one, where you can just go too far, too fast, or you're building around one singular thing instead of really having foundational capacity at in each kind of pillar of the business: sales, marketing, operations, leadership.
I think it's important. So you're talking about just creating that balanced growth, basically framework is what you guys do basically on that side. What have you seen? Can you give a specific example of how you've helped either a service provider go through specific things on marketing, sales, fulfillment, and leadership, and where they might have got stuck and realized hey, maybe they were right. I should have been doing this first, right?
Yeah. So, this kind of ties into the previous question too, right? Because when we look at certain pieces, we really want to look at the recipe. And so a huge piece, you might have the right ingredients, but if you put those ingredients in and you switch them, so let's say if you're baking a cake, you switch the flour and the frosting, same ingredients, different timing, totally different outcome. So a huge part of that, a lot of times when we're looking at clients' worlds, is we're going, okay, you might be doing a lot of the right things, but we're doing them out of order, out of sequence. So one of the things we love doing, once we get the sequence proper, we love to leverage the art of compounding. And so we have a whole system. One of the tools that we have, it's called Funnel XP. And so within that, we start to deconstruct people's business system. And then you can look at creative ways to optimizing each step along the way. I'm going to not make the mistake. I just made it our event. I started talking about math and I saw everybody glaze over. Not talking math. Note to self. But yeah, when you start to compound and you multiply those against each other, people's businesses get real big, real quick, if they're doing it the right way.
Makes sense. I think one of the biggest topics, I don't know about you all, but recently this last year in 2025 specifically, a lot of leaders that I've talked to have been talking about burnout. A lot of people are resisting things. A lot of people have burnout. Maybe the business isn't going as well as they thought the previous years. What would you say to those that are scaling the scale mode process and they're just like, I feel burnt out, and what should I do for myself? It's like mental health, also with culture and team on that side. What would you say to that?
Drugs.
Hey, this is a PG-13 show.
You cool? I take the first swing?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I would just say this: burnout, for me at least, from my perspective, I see burnout as really tied back to the stories that we tell ourselves. And the expectations that we put on ourselves. When we're winning, when we're making progress, we feel amazing. When we're not, we don't feel so good. So one of the things learning from Tony back in the day was, progress equals happiness. And so a huge piece of that puzzle, the more we can focus on the progress we're making, and the dangerous game that we play in the game of business is we see our revenue as the scoreboard and the only scoreboard.
Good point.
And that's a dangerous, dangerous play because there's so many days where we're making massive amounts of progress and it doesn't always translate to revenue.
Yeah.
And so we've got to be good, especially if you're a solopreneur, if you're a party of one, or even if you're a party of two. It is so critical to be talking about the victories that you have. I mean, we had a victory dinner last night, right?
We did.
We always talk about celebrating our wins, all the time. Every day, it's important. No matter how small or large your wins are, always celebrate your wins. So I'm glad that you guys do the same thing.
We do. That's a big part of it. And I would just say too, I went through burnout. I had the good fortune before I ever got into this space of co-building an 8-figure business in the oil and gas industry and totally burned myself to a crisp. And it was messy. It was awful. I nearly lost my marriage. At the time, I had 2, young kids at 1 and 3 years old. And it's a real thing. So I've actually spent a big part of the last 10 years of my life figuring out, number one, how did it happen? How do I prevent it from happening? And how do I help other entrepreneurs and high performers figure it out? And I think one of the things relative to burnout is that I think that the concept that we have, generally speaking, of high performance is really flawed. Because when you look at most people that we identify as high performers, they're horribly unbalanced. And we get into this polarizing discussion where you say the word balance to high performer and they're like, no, don't even talk to me right now. It's a dirty word, right? And yet on the other side, for the people who don't identify with that, they look at high performers, and when we hear the real stories of I love the guy, Tiger Woods, good example, right? They go, oh gosh, wow, that's so extreme. It's too much. And I think the reality is that in order to do this well, as an entrepreneur, especially, or a high performer of any kind, we've got to embrace the idea that what I call strategic energy allocation, which is the concept that we have seasons. And what I believe is that we should never, as high performers, be in a situation where one thing is way up here and something else is in the toilet, ever. But we also have to accept, I think one of the hardest things as entrepreneurs that we have to accept is the idea that it's okay to be in maintenance mode with some area of your life for a period of time. We can't redline everything and actually be successful. And I think actually it's probably one of the biggest myths in entrepreneurship and high performance is the concept that I'm redlining everything in my life and I'm quote unquote playing full out, you're actually not. I hate to break it to you, but I'll break a few hearts right now. If that's what you think you're doing, your goals are not big enough, because if they were big enough, you'd have to silo your focus on a couple of things at a time and go maintenance mode on a couple of other things.
So on your moving into mastery part on your fourth stage, what does it look like to you two?
I would just say this. I mean, I think we should talk about this. We just got done, speaking of Tony Robbins, we were in an engagement with Tony and his team launching a new product this year. And I think we can talk about that a little bit, because I think at the mastery level, number one, you, as an entrepreneur, you get into a situation where you become a bit more of an investor, an ideator, a facilitator, an investor. And there are multiple systems that are working in harmony. This is one of the biggest reasons that people that play at a mastery level can move so quickly, is that they have multiple systems that are foundational that are now moving in harmony. It's kind of like if we think of like all, some kind of beautiful machine where all the gears are just working, harmoniously. That's kind of what happens at a mastery level, where we're a little bit more of a magic wand, as opposed to, our hands kind of in the clay.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree with that. And you get to be more of an artist when you get into that mastery mode too, right? You get to have more ideas that can come to fruition. Whereas when you're at that startup level, you're going to be swinging the hammer, painting the fence. You're doing all the pieces. So yeah, you get more leverage and quite a bit more impact too.
I love that. Well, I love this, and I love what you're doing to help service providers and other business owners. Could you share with our audience a little bit more about what you're up to and how they can connect with you both?
Yeah, absolutely. So first things first, if figuring out what level of business you're at right now is something that you'd like to do or that you're interested in, we've got a really simple tool to do that. If you just go to empirepartners.net/quiz, you can actually take a quiz, and it'll break down in the 5 areas of business exactly where you sit right now. It's really, really helpful. In addition to that, if working with us is something that you're interested in and or connecting with other business owners who are doing similar things, we have quarterly events. And so regardless of when this episode is going to air, you can go to empirepartners.net/event and find out about our next upcoming in-person event. And for me, if you want to follow me, you can get me on Instagram @RealRyanLang. And I also post real heavily on LinkedIn. If you go search me up on LinkedIn, you can connect with me there as well. Brook?
brookbishop.com. If you want to connect with me there, you got all my social handles, all those fun pieces. You can send me emails. Don't give my email to somebody random though, because, oh man, my inbox is terrible right now. But yeah.
What about your podcast?
Oh, our podcast. Oh yeah. Our podcast. coachingequation.com. So yeah, how many episodes did you just say we hit today?
Yeah, we're
caught me off guard with that.
93 or 94. Yeah,
that's great.
I love it. There is that math word in
math.
the equation.
Sorry,
Right?
no more math.
There it
No more
is.
math.
There it is. We can talk in math. Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for joining the show. Everyone watching, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. Take a listen over on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to your audio podcasts. And we'll see you in the next episode.